Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to bring you a special sneak preview of a game that's not even out yet, but has caught my attention. It is called POTUS, for the Battle of the Trump Presidency. Why is it in a box? Because it's a prototype, and I'm very thankful for Mike Vander, Veen, and his company for putting together a stellar prototype copy that I've been able to get my hands on, thanks to the efforts of the designer. It might not look like much, but POTUS is a game that really caught my attention at a previous trade show, Game On, in February. Enough that I did my own hand prototype, which was, as expected, horrible and abysmal, and oh well, at least I learned how to buy card covers. But then the opportunity came to do a prototype, and it's really best to leave the prototypes up to the experts, because this is a great example and an ability to be able to show you a little bit about POTUS. Now, think of this box. Notice it has nothing on it. Nothing. I would like people to come into this game with the same mindset. No expectations, no steering, no anchoring, nothing. Just go in with a blank slate of mind, and you will find that this game is not meant to be intentionally divisive. It's not meant to be intentionally adorational. It really is meant, in almost a clinical fashion, to relay the first year of the Trump presidency in that swath of time. A couple things to note. This is not about the election. This game is not about the election. So if you have, for those of you with all the tension and turmoil, if you were hoping for some kind of like, Campaign Manager 2016 or like some of the GMT games of 1960, year of the president. This is not about the election. This game takes place after the election as part of the first year of the Trump presidency. So for those of you who that would be a turnoff to, you won't have to worry about that. For those of you who are maybe looking for more of that, this is not the game that probably will satiate that. The other thing is, like I said, it's meant to be a clinical, as unbiased as possible look at the various characters and contributors to the first year of the presidency from a variety of factions. And so with that, let's just stop me talking and show you a little bit about how the game is played. Alright, so rather than do a full unboxing, I'm just going to show you the game as it's set up, because there really aren't a lot of components to this game, despite the depth of play. There's the ever-present manual. You'll see in the center, this is the arena where people are going to be jockeying for position to earn and win agenda items and further their faction. The juice round, squeeze round, we'll go into those a little bit. You'll notice that each round, there's a headline event that will change the game for one of the four factions, or maybe all of them. Hidden agenda cards, which through the game you can earn or swap out. Hidden agenda cards will give you bonus victory points at the end if you meet those conditions, and they are hidden. Then we have the four different cardinal factions, as you can see. We'll just go around them in order. We have the establishment with its custom set of cards. And it gets 2 hidden agenda cards at the start of each game. It cares about bills. Then we have the nativists, who are very interested in the tweets. This holds the scoring for the entire group, so it's kind of offloaded here to make the board smaller. Some extra tokens. It too has its own custom board. And 3 hidden agenda cards. The globalist plutocrats, once again, 2 agenda cards, their own custom deck. They're more interested in deals and being able to pull out deals during the game. They're a very interesting group to play. And finally, we have the Resistance, the moderates and military leadership. They have their deck of cards, and they have the Mueller probe track, because they're particularly interested in the impeachment, things going on. We'll leave it at that. And that's about it. You'll notice we already have our tweet deck set up. We have the 4 directions, which are going to be instantly clear once we do a playthrough, which we're going to do quite shortly. And that's it. So let's get into the game, and we'll just start playing a few rounds. Okay, so we are setting up for our first round. The first thing I did was draw faction cards for every player. So they have a hand of 6 cards. that they will use in the 3 rounds that comprise, or the 3 agenda item wars per se, that precede each of the or okay, we are set up and about ready to go. We start off the round by drawing 6 cards for each faction to form their hand. These cards will be used to fight for the agenda items and win victory points in the 3 different segments of agenda item war, per se, that comprise each round. Once we do that, we then draw a headline event, which I will do right here to start us off, and it says, Mueller announces indictments. White House scrambles to provide damage control. The plutocrat faction must discard a random faction card from its hand. That's not very good for them, but it doesn't affect anyone else, so we're going to flip-flop. What does that mean? It means that they're going to be a little less powerful at some point in the game. Alright. Oh, at the end of the game. Alright, that one's discarded. Poor plutocrats. Who said plutocrat wasn't a real planet? Ooh, we discarded Ivanka. I like her. Alright. And that ends that section. Now we're going to draw 3 cards from the agenda deck, and these are going to form the 3 things we're going to fight over in each round. We have a tweet, Trump waffling on wall, another tweet, Obamacare in the crosshairs, and a third tweet, Iran missile test sparks tensions. And with that, we are ready to go. Pretty quick, huh? Alright, so the order that this happens is determined by the card. So, for example, is Trump waffling? Is he waffling on the wall? Notice it's breaking, not news, it's breaking NWES. This is the direction and the order of play that this tweet will take. NWES, NWES. That was fortuitous, which means that the moderates start first, followed by the plutocrats, the establishment, and lastly the nativists. Turn order can be very important. Matter of fact, it is very important because of the trumping aspect, of the way it goes. So we're going to start the juice round and the squeeze rounds. Basically, you're going to play 2 cards each time we're fighting over one of the tweets or aces or legislation as it comes in, which we'll show you legislation shortly. So basically, it's going to start with resistance. And they're going to take of their cards, and they're going to say, okay, what am I going to use? Now, this is the important part. When you're playing for juice, everyone plays 1 card for juice, 1 card for squeeze. What does that mean? Everyone's going to play 1 card for points, which means the only thing that matters is these numbers. Then the second round, they can either play it for numbers, or they can take advantage of the special text on the cards to do special actions that may or may not be related to the actual agenda item being fought over. In this case, we're just going to go, hey, blah, 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 blah. Look how smart I am. Boy, nothing random here. All right, Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is going in the juice round, which means that for winning that tweet, which the resistance is going to get 2 points for this if they win this tweet. The nationalists, nativists, are going to be 3 points if they win the tweet. The other 2 don't really care that much, I would guess, although there is a special important thing, and that if the establishment or the nativists win this tweet, we get to put a no veto on the establishment's cards. So when this bill, when the wall funds particular line over here for going through the House and the Senate and being established, if either the establishment or the nativists win this, they put a no veto on there, which means they don't even have to worry about it going to the president's desk or being signed. It's automatically passed right through and accepted. So that's an advantage beyond just getting victory points that this tweet might have if these 2 win it. Now, so we played Nikki Haley, and we've given her 3 juice. Next, the plutocrats. How much do they care? Nah, they don't care a whole lot. Let's use Anthony Scaramucci. Like, whatever. This isn't... I don't have much of a dog in this hunt. However, the establishment, on the other hand, might. And whereas it might want to use a high-powered number card just to get some strength, it also has to remember that that card might be even more valuable as a squeeze event than it would be as a point. In this case, we're going to use Dan Coates. There you go, buddy. Because there's really nothing nothing that this special ability isn't all that advantageous right now on this point in the game. So we're going to use Dan Coates, and look, we've got 4. Finally, it's the nativists, and they have a lot that want. Nativists generally want to win tweets. That's kind of their thing. And so they can choose, Jeff Sessions, all kinds of stuff. Do we want to keep up with the Joneses and Mike Pompeo? Yeah, we are. We're going to use this. All right, so look at that. So it's a pretty tight race right now. Pretty tight race. There's that. All right, now we come to the squeeze round. Now, the squeeze round is a little bit more than just picking a number. You can pick a number, or you can choose something and go, maybe I can do something else. And nothing in the Senate yet. So let's say, you know what? We're going to do this. Even though it's early in the round, this usually isn't probably a good idea. We're not going to have the resistance worry about this. Whether that's logical or whether that's the best move, I don't know. I'm just going to say, instead of using this for the value, it's going to use it for a squeeze. What does that mean? It means that if this doesn't get trumped by a later card, there's going to be legislation in the House that can be sponsored. And this has to go here. And I believe you have to say, put a squeeze token on it and say what it is that you're going to sponsor. He is going to want to sponsor the DREAM Act. So that's his thing. He's saying, I want to sponsor the DREAM Act. So if he gets to the point where this can be make it to legislation, he's going to be bringing up the DREAM Act. Now, what does that have to do with that tweet? Nothing. And that's the thing about squeeze round, is that while people are focused on winning that tweet, there might be it's kind of like okay, everyone's distracted on this tweet. I don't really care about it, so I'm going to try this and try and go this direction while everyone else is focused on the tweet. Kind of a clever way to kind of, represent politics. And with that, we have the plutocrats, and they're kind of going to do the same thing. They're all about the deals, and they're going to be like, real estate, energy. They don't really care that much. They're going to do Wall Street Journal. Not for the thing. They don't really care if they win that or not. It only gets them a victory point. But they do want to start and engage in an energy deal. So they too are going to use this for the squeeze. So their event might also get them going off and making some deals like they've been wanting. And right now, since they're down a card, this might be a great opportunity for them. Then we have the establishment, and they do care, and they do want to win. And so what are we looking at here? We got... we risk it. The tweet doesn't have anything on it for domestic policy, so it doesn't care about that. No need to sponsor. Although, if it really doesn't care, right now it's early in the game, maybe it wants to sponsor legislation in the House. Alright, forget it. He's using the squeeze play, and he's sponsoring legislation in the House, and what's he sponsoring? He's going to sponsoring the wall funds. That's right. Now what's going to happen with these two? You'll find out shortly. Finally, we have the nativists, and they're like, I got this. I don't really... I'm just going to have her play this card. And go, yep, points. There we go. 6. I'm playing it for points. Okay, that is the end of the first... phase for resolving agenda item 1. Now we go back to forward. So we go the latest card, and we roll backwards, because later cards can trump earlier cards, which we'll see in just a second. This was just for points. Discard. This means now it's going to be the topic of legislation that starts the next round. This didn't get countermanded by anything, and so now we have started a new deal, a new energy deal for the plutocrats. So their energy is now active. Now they have to get 8 points of cards here to be able to close that deal. Other factions are going to be looking out for that, because there's some serious points every time they complete a deal. It is the most primal way for the plutocrats to make deals. So if you keep them from making deals, you pretty much kept them at bay. But they will make huge leaps in victory points by closing these deals. So something to keep in mind in future round. Now we have this squeeze. He wanted to represent the DREAM Act, but because he was Trump, because someone else got there first, there's only one legislation that can be contended over, he basically just lost out. And that is how you bump. And the rest of these just go in their discard piles, because that's just how life rolls. Oh. And that is won by the nativists. So what do? The nativists get 3 points. 1, 2, 3. And we know, waffling on the wall? I don't think so. So we know that if this bill gets to the House, approved by the House, and approved by the Senate, it's instantly signed into law. And that is the first phase of that. And then now we're going to go in and we're going to resolve the second agenda item. All right, let's go to round 2. Round 2, this tweet is Obamacare in the crosshairs. And this one has SNW, not news, SENW. Look at its worth. It's worth points for almost every side, and a little bit more for the reservists, but there you go, 2, 2, 2, and 3. This one says no veto of ACA repeal if it's won by either the establishment or the nativists. So this is another one where if it falls into the hands of the establishment or nativists, it's going to expedite the passage of laws that are going to help mostly the establishment. So we're going to SENW. SENW. So now we have a little different thing. SENW. So the nativists go first on this one, and they've got it. They care. They do. They're going to start off by... They're going to start off here. There's no legislation right now that's heading to the Senate, so might as well use his 2 points. Oh, we got to reset these. 2 points. All right. Then we have these guys, and he's going to go all in and say, Rebus. I'll take Rebus for 5, Alex. All right. Then we've got these guys, and they're going to go, I'm going to take New York Times for 4. And no, I'm not saying these are smart moves. I'm kind of speeding it up just to show you. Eric Trump. We need it. No, that's not bad. Okay, we're going to do Eric Trump. And he's going to do 4. Why not? It's still points, right? All right. Now we spit around to the squeeze round, and this time it's going to... it makes it interesting. How badly does... No. We're going to use Sarah. We're going to use Sarah, and we're not thinking we're going to make a lot of progress, so we're going to use Sarah, and we're going to use her squeeze. There you go. Now it's time for the establishment. They think they're doing pretty well, so there's no domestic ones, so they're going to go ahead and continue to do that for juice. The New York Times knows that it's kind of in trouble trying to win that one because of this card here, which we'll see. So it's just going to go ahead and lay low and use Schumer. It's not the Schumer. Alright, and we're going to use him for points, just in case. 5, 6, 7. And finally, the plutocrats are like, whatever. Oh, actually, they're in the middle of an energy deal. They'd like to actually pass this through. They don't care about the score, but they do want to engage in an energy deal again, and that would bring them from 4 to 6 and get them closer to making that deal. So there we go. So we go backwards. Guess what? Nobody trumped that one. So now there's 6. Chuck Schumer is 3. He's there for the points. Points, squeeze, discard any media faction card. Well, now, instead of 7, 6, 5, 4, back down to 3, which it's a little bit vestigial of a choice. But there we go. And so now we have set. The establishment wins this tweet. The establishment gets 2 victory points. And more importantly, they get a no veto on the Obamacare repeal. There we go. I should just flip that to no vote. All right, so we have 2 tweets won, and that's that. So we're gonna
Discard the cards, and that, and then let's go ahead and just wind up and wrap up the final round.
Okay, we're going to get down a little bit from bird's eye level down here for the last card. We have the last tweet to contend over. Iran missile test sparks tensions. Now you'll notice that this is pretty important to the resistance. It's worth more to them than the others. There's a global tag here, which might be beneficial because some cards can key off of that. And you'll notice that the order is NWSE. So we're going to begin with N. Now here's an interesting conundrum. Nativists, or the resistance really wants this, but they also know that they're going to go first, which means that they have plenty of room to be trumped. Har har. And so they're going to do something interesting. They're going to be like, I really want this, so hey, plutocrats. Sup, yo. Okay, how about you guys help me out with this, and in exchange, I'll make sure that I don't try and thwart your business deal you're in the middle of over there. What do you say, pal? Okay. So they negotiate and they decide, okay, well, I'm going to do 4 points for 4 points for the resistance. Then we have the plutocrats. They have 1 card. I mean, there's really nothing here for them at all. They have to play this, so it's not like they can do anything to help out. So they're going to go, yeah, whatever. So they're going to play it in support of our green friends here. So now 4 and 4 is 8. So that gives a little bit of a push. The nativists, not to be denied, are going to go ahead and just lay down sessions. Boom! 5 for me, yo! And that leaves our good friends, the establishment. The establishment's like, whatever. I don't really have anything in the game right now. I've got legislation. I've already set it for next turn, so yeah, whatever. So that is the end of that. Now we go back, and now he's going to hope that the plutocrats, well, there's nothing they can do. They can't thwart it or anything. So now we've got 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're at 11 for the resistance. Now nothing for these guys. They lost out on a card. So that leaves us. And look, because the tweet has this particular symbol, then he can use his squeeze power, not just his power. Let's get this. Can we focus on this? Come on, cameraman. Well, that sucks. Alright, so I'm just going to read it to you. This says that you can squeeze for 5 juice if the tweet has a foreign policy symbol, which it does. Not happy with the lack of focus. Alright, so that's instead of 3 is 5. That puts it at 10, but it's still not quite good enough. So the nationalist goes, hey, you know what? If you give that to me, if you support me, well, gosh, I can get extra points. But the establishment's like, you're already ahead of me. I say no. So I'm just going to play it 5 for me, knowing that I'm going to give it to the reservists, because why not? They get the lead, but the establishment feels compelled to say, you know what, I'm not going to let the nativists get any more ahead, because I think that we'll probably have some wheeling and dealing later. Plus they may have a hidden agenda that steers towards it, which we'll go into shortly. So that's it. So now we know that the reservists, because of the help of the plutocrats, was able to, by 1 point, be able to win this tweet. So they go up 3 points. So 1, 2, 3, but guess what? The way the rules go is that if you land on and it's blocked, because there's never a tie, then you go ahead to the first one. Unless you're the plutocrats. If you're the plutocrats, you get knocked back. So in fact, if it had been like this, and they'd won, they would have gone 1, 2, 3, boom. So you see how that works? The plutocrats have some power at their disposal for breaking ties. So we're going to flip that there, and there we go. And that is the end of the first round of play, and that's basically how rounds go. I'm actually going to go over 2 other situations to show you a little bit more about not just tweets, but some of the other agenda items that can be fought over. Okay, so now we have our next 3 agenda cards. We're going to do the headline event. which says Freedom Caucus Revolt. Any faction holding Mark Meadows' ace must reveal that card. Well, we don't have any aces in anybody's hand, so that's irrelevant for our purposes. Alright, we do the 3 cards and we're ready to roll. Now, this is legislation. This is different than a tweet. When we do the tweets, these are irrelevant. We go in order of the faction that sponsored it around clockwise. So what that means is that we're going to get establishment, nativists, plutocrats, and resistance. Now, the first thing that happens is, because it's sponsored, it already has 4 votes in its favor. And what was we sponsoring? I believe it was the wall. Call me a liar if it turns out I was wrong in the video earlier, but we're going to sponsor. So basically, we're trying to get this bill approved in the House because he's sponsoring legislation in the House. So we're trying to get this approved in the House to get it one step closer to being turned into an actual law, which will give points to the establishment and the nativists in fairly good sizable chunks. So 5 points, so we have 4 already, and well, I mean, he's sponsoring it, so he wants to go, let's do it. Now we're at 7. All right. Of course, the nativist feels compelled to go, yeah, that's great. Of course, he has a really crummy hand, but he's going to add his cents worth and go 3. Yeah. 3 against. Oh, wait, no, 3, 4. What am I doing? All right, now it's the plutocrats, and they don't really have, again, they're like, yeah, whatever. Not a big deal. But in their hand, they have some opportunities, and so they'll talk to the resistance and go, hey, you know what, I'll help you out. I'll help try to keep this bill from passing, you know, if you'll do some swinging deal for me. And like, oh, sure, whatever. So we'll use Mr. Kushner here. Always the popular lad, right? And so he's 5 against, and that leaves James Comey. Let's do him and go 5 against. So 5, 10. So now it's even again. And now we have a second round. And this time we're going to do, we don't have anything that specifically helps in this regard. So we're going to assume that this passes, and we're going to play this for the squeeze. What does that do? It means he wants to actually sponsor legislation in the Senate. So if we pass this in the House, then we're going to have a step up to get it right to the Senate approval process in the next round. So that's what this dude's going to do. And that leaves, of course, it does leave a risk. It leaves it on the nativist to try to find a way to make sure this happens. And we're going to use this for squeeze to go ahead and make it 14 in favor and 10 against. That leaves the plutocrats and the resistance. And they're going to be like, is there anything I can do here? Engage in you. Yes, so engage in an energy deal. So it's going to use the squeeze. So it's out of the game. It's like, I don't really care how the board goes, but I would like to finish this energy deal, because if I add 3 more, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that deal is done, and then plutocrats will get some serious points. Finally, that leaves a nativist, and they're like, you know, do I make it equal? Do I make it less? They have some options. They decide, you know what, I'm going to let it go in the House. I don't really care that much. I do, but I don't. But I don't like the fact that the plutocrats are going to get a score, so they're going to do this. And use this for the squeeze. And what does that say? Remove any faction card engaged in a deal. Plutocrats are like, hey, what's up? You promised you were going to not interfere. Yeah, well, what do? No negotiations are binding here, so yeah, it might come back on me later, but I'll take my chances. I don't want plutocrats to get a bunch of points. That just don't strike me well. So basically, that is it for the legislation. So we look and go, did it pass? It did. So it's now approved by the House and one step closer to being put into law. You'll notice that once it gets approved by the Senate, because there's a no veto that we did earlier, it goes right into law. If this wasn't there, then if it fails, once it goes to the Senate, then immediately we take 2 cards and we play, take 2 cards and try and get it passed into law. You do a round just to facilitate the passage of getting it through into law. Sorry, like without the no veto marker. If you take those two, everybody takes 2 cards and basically plays it just like a regular round. If it fails, then it now has to go back into onto the president's desk. It has to go back into the House and then back across to the Senate again. So it is an extra long path if you don't get it through the first time, but that's politics. In this case, though, it would go right on through. And that's the way it works with all of the laws. So in this case, we work backwards. Remove any faction card engaged in a deal. Well, guess what? This sucker's gone. Ha ha ha. And now that ends that. And then this, well, it still counts. It's still engaged, but now it's just 5. So basically, she doesn't get that deal. Had the plutocrats gotten that deal, it would have been 6 victory points for them and 2 for the establishment. So I think the resistance probably treacherized appropriately in that regard. We'll see. And this points, and this is for sponsoring legislation. Once again, for the wall. And then that's that. And that's the end of the round, so we know that that goes farther. This goes, leaving the discard pile of the person doing that. And that's that. That's how legislation goes. There's a couple other things to note. There are other things to do, like you can sponsor legislation that gets you through these 3 things. The budget and the debt ceiling are simply things that have to be approved. They can be sponsored by anybody. They don't have to be House or Senate specific. But the budget, you just get extra victory points. If you sponsor and it goes through, you get victory points. The debt ceiling, if you sponsor it and it goes through, you get victory points. But more importantly, if for some reason you don't get the debt ceiling approved, by the time the game is over, it has absolutely no impact on how people did. You all lose. So, debt ceiling doesn't get approved, bam, everybody loses. Finally, there's impeachment. Certain tweets and certain other cards during the course of the game, if they are won by plutocrats or establishment, or resistance or establishment, will actually advance the probe track, the molar probe track. And for each deal that the PLU does, it goes up, and for evidence tweets, the establishments of the resistance earn, the evidence pile goes up. What does that mean? At some point, you can, with certain cards, basically vie as an agenda item to impeach the president. This is also a long road and not very likely, but anything's possible. If that happens, once again, you're voting on the yes and no track, noting that wherever the probe track is at that time, that is the amount of starting approval votes that it goes. And so, and once it happens, you get indicted by the House, but then you have to do yet another round to get convicted by the Senate. If that happens, the game is immediately over once he's impeached. And then whoever has the most victory points or accrues the victory points at the time wins. So those are 2 interesting things. Finally, we have the face down ace cards. These are really powerful cards that you can earn. And you do it the same way. Basically, whoever has the most victory points at the time it's that you start dealing with the winning or losing the agenda item, that is the point when whoever's ahead starts first, and then it goes around to fight in the same way that you would for anything else for control of this ace. And what does that give you? Well, these are one-shot wonders. In this case, it's Paul Manafort, and he has an amazing amount of stuff. Like, he can squeeze for 10 juice if it's impeachment. So he can basically be a really handy thing to throw in the mix once it's impeachment time, but he's a one and done. Once you use it, you lose it. And that's powerful. There's also Trump. There's a lot of other aces, but you don't know what they are when you're playing them. You're vying for them, but you don't really know until you get them what they are. Now, there are certain cards that let you look at other people's aces and such, but aces bring kind of a wild card aspect into the game, where you never know where someone might have something up their sleeve, literally. And finally, at the end of the game, no matter how the game resolves, unless the debt ceiling isn't raised, if someone hits 50 points, it's a win. They win outright. Like, you get 50 points, you win. Period. Zap. No questions. Doesn't matter if everyone else was close during the round or whatever. 50 is a win. Second is the point where you start off and you go around the table in a specific order. I believe it's establishment, nativists, plutocrats, reservists, and everyone figures out the points based on their hidden agenda cards. So, for example, if ACA repeal was passed, they're going to get 3 victory points. Wall funds, 2 victory points, and so those are their agendas. Same thing with the nativists. They have 3 cards, but if I own the Trump ace card, I get 4 extra victory points at the end of the game. If I own Mueller, 4 victory points. If I have more tweets with this symbol, I get extra points, and they ramp up. Now, if at any time anybody gets 50, they win outright. But they go around, count up the points, and basically whoever's ahead at the end wins the game. And that's really the game that's POTUS. The battle inside the Trump White House. Now we're going to get into my thoughts on the game and why I found it compelling enough to do a playthrough and why I think it's an excellent game. So there you have POTUS, and an example of gameplay to the best of my course abilities. Why I think this game is worthy of consideration and might be good to look at is that it really does an excellent job of relaying the forces and the various angles from different people and sides and factions and lobbies and the cultural impact of the first year of the presidency. It does it in a way that's simple. The thing I love about this game, one of the main things I love, is the asymmetry is not fundamental, it's motivational. By that I mean, when you have a game that's very asymmetric, it can be really difficult to invest people into. An example would be Netrunner or Vast, the Crystal Caverns. These are great games, but each side has a very unique mechanical way to play that means not only do you have to explain the game for who's playing this side, you have to explain a different side, and there are coin games, the same thing. Like there's similarities, but in general, you have different things you have to teach each of the people playing the game. And no matter how great that game is, that is a barrier to entry that can really pull down the ability to grab people and be able to play. This game does not do that. How everybody plays the game is the same way. 6 cards in your hand, 3 rounds, play a card, wait, play another card. Everybody does that. There's absolutely no difference in how to teach people to play. Where the asymmetrical nature of it lies is in the motivation for what cards you want to play, when you want to play them, and why you would want to team up or not team up with people around you. And people can grok that. Even people who aren't hardcore gamers can understand and kind of get that. And it was easy to see in the games being played that the emergent understanding of how that motivation of you as this faction in this game should conduct yourself, especially after the first couple of games. They're intrinsic motivators. If you're a nativist, those tweets are gold. You need those. You need to be pestering constantly, motivated to that. If you're the establishment, well, you want bills passed. Because they help you, they help others, but they help you as well. And you might want to help the nativist at times just to keep stuff out of the hands of the resistance, but maybe not. The resistance kind of is the yin-yang to the nativists, in that they too care a lot about tweets. They also care about impeachment. If they can pull it off, or at least make that a large distraction point, then they'll be able to pull that off. And sometimes the establishment may even want to help them. You never know. Timing is everything. If you can get, if the establishment's ahead, there's no reason not to help get the impeachment proceedings through, as difficult as they are, and rightfully so. In the real world, it's a very difficult thing. And the plutocrats, they're kind of the hidden powerhouse. They're the ones, they don't do a lot of jabbing. They just kind of sit there, and then they'll just right hook you with these deals. Like, they'll be kind of, okay, if you're not watching them, bam, got a deal, major points. Oh, crap, they went from 4th to 2nd. And so, whereas the nativists and the resistance were like jab, jab, point, the occasional that. The plutocrats are all about the big bring the hammer in as fast as you can, because once you get those deals done, there's not a lot of points left. And so they are an interesting faction to play as well. But all of that is all external to the fact that it's really a relatively easy game to teach and play. And it takes about 2 to 3 hours. At least for us it did. It gets a little bit faster over time. But the other thing is, this is one of the games, and I don't like negotiation games. I like playing a game almost siloed, the occasional interaction. This is a game that begs you to have to consider other people around you and go, I can't do this on my own. Like diplomacy without the pain and anger and friendship breakage. Although, who knows. This is the kind of game where you do need to rely on people and use Strange Bedfellow's account. In one game, I literally had to look across, and both the resistance had to plug their nose, and I had to plug my nose as the nativist, and we need to work together on this and make it happen. And so these are strange negotiation times, but they work well. And it's easy to think about, okay, I need your help with this. Will you come through with me? And I'm having to trust you. You might let me down. You might mess me over. That's the nature of politics, and it's perfectly embodied in this game. That is the compelling part, is just the interaction. I can't imagine playing this with less than 4. I'll be interested to see if the designer can come up with some interesting, non-burdensome ways to play it with less than 4. I suppose you could team the nativists and establishment up, and I just, none of it sounds satisfying from description, so 4 is probably the optimal, and it's probably going to remain the optimal number of people to play with. And you know, it's gonna, it might still be something that people are just turned off on because it's about Trump. You know, it's not, like I said, it's not a game that makes fun of him directly. It's not a game that, you know, that deifies him directly. The tweets are what they are. For the most part, the cards, I'm like, okay, I see from this character, you know, why you would pick this special power, ha ha ha. There's only one card in the game that I didn't really like at all, and I'll probably maybe personally change that one up just for me. I'm not going to say what it is. This is not about cutting them. This is not meant to be a distraction. It's just that for the most part, I mean, there's just been an awfully good job by the designer in keeping things like just focused on just the facts, ma'am, or, you know, just the tweets, ma'am. And because it's not a simulation. It's kind of a negotiation where you're just like, okay, these are the things up for grabs through the year, that time slice of the year, the first year of the presidency. It's going to make for great expansion packs, because year 2 can have all extra tweets, and who knows what can be embodied in it. Now, as for timing and when it's going to come out, I'm not sure. I know the designer's working through various sources to try to get a company to pick it up and fund it, and I think it's very, very, very good for whichever company does, whether it's Kickstarted, whether it's self-published, whoever's going to publish it. And maybe by the time this video is out, the designer will be able to chime in and kind of give us information on when it's, you know, on the ways in which people can ultimately get a copy of this. Because I think you're going to be if you don't like politics, but you don't mind basically a fun game that's in a contemporary modern setting that kind of can bring out the polite politics, as if that were an oxymoron, of modern times, then this is definitely a game you shouldn't ignore. You shouldn't just skip past it because of the theme. And with that, I think that's all I have to say. I appreciate your taking the time to watch this video. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to leave anything in the comments. As far as like any game questions or information about parts that I didn't maybe cover quickly, just let me know. Once again, thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.